If you're on X, simply pull up the hashtag Accra Floods trend and you'll see the devastation that yesterday's downpour had in many, many parts of the capital. I'm seeing cars submerged, I'm seeing kiosks floating. Very, very worrying indeed. Enoch Asando says that Accra floods keep repeating every year and it keeps getting intense. How long are we going to wait? Must people get displaced all the time? Do people have to die first? How are we adapting to this situation? While others were sleeping yesterday, people displaced had to deal with the flood. And today, these same people will also have to go to work. Just imagine how that's going to affect the mental, physical, and emotional state of hard-working Ghanaians. Providing resilient infrastructure and urban planning should be treated as a priority.
Religious leaders.
3FM Sunrise.
Now I am one of
Kofi _ Senyo says, since we love the concrete jungle, we better be ready to turn to Aquaman every time it rains past an hour. Just Danny says, good morning, Accra. As the sun rises today, I'm sending strong wishes for safe and peaceful starts to your day. The floods I witnessed earlier were quite intense. He says, everybody stay safe. Fellow Ghanaians, I echo that call. This one says, the concrete floors and high walls we so love will eventually become the coffins we desire. A valley with full invincibility. Wanopasem says, it's that time of the year. Let the hashtags flow. If you're watching us on Facebook, you'll see some of that devastation yesterday as we gear up for the rainy season. How secure, safe, and protected are you? Send us a post, send us a message across the board on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. We do this in tandem with you.
FM Sunrise.
Let's connect now with Joshua Asamoah. He's a meteorologist with the Ghana Met. Let's get some insight into the weather forecast. As we do know, some more rain is expected, but can the capital handle it? Can the country handle it? Joshua, hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Helen.
Yes, hope you're doing well.
I'm very fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. We're discussing yesterday's downpour as it affected the capital and other parts of the country. Are we to expect some more rain today?
Well, good morning to everyone listening. So today looks quite fair. We are not anticipating any rainfall of that intensity in Accra within the next 24 hours. So basically the bright sunny. They'll have some periodic clouds here and there. Worst case, the inland parts of Accra, that's around Bukwase, Amasaman there, we'll get some showers later in the day. But nothing to worry about for most places in Accra.
And is it true that for this upcoming rainy season, and you'll provide some knowledge for us when exactly we expect it to officially be the rainy season? Are we expecting some more rain? Is that the forecast so far, or is that not easy to tell at this stage?
Yes, so for us in southern Ghana, that's from the coastal part all the way to the middle belt, around the Ashanti, Bono East, Oti region. We are in the rainfall season for southern Ghana. That's the major rainfall season for southern Ghana. And from May to June, actually, is the peak of the rainy season. The rains are going to be frequent around this time going into June. And they will start subsiding after June into July. Then we'll get a break somewhere in August before we go back into the minor rainfall season. So we are actually in the rainy season for southern Ghana. And this is just a transition into the peak period of the rainy season for us in the south. The northern parts are also entering into their rainy season. So very soon, we are actually experiencing some cases of rainfall now, but it will become more frequent as we go into June, July, August.
So we are, as you say, firmly in the rainy season. So the rain we've seen so far, it's not erratic. You'd say it's on course as far as the timing is concerned.
Yes, very much on course.
Now, how is climate change affecting rainfall patterns in the country, if it is at all? That's a question that we get very often.
Yes, we also get this quite often. So for based on the data that we have, we can say that in terms of temperature, there's a significant change in temperature. We are going towards warmer conditions, and that change is quite significant. And so it is something that we have said that temperatures are warming up to higher values. But for rainfall, same cannot be said because based on the data that we have and what we have analyzed in the past, there's not that statistically significant change. And so we cannot say that we are seeing a change in rainfall for anywhere in the country. What we are seeing is a slight shift in the patterns of rainfall. And so when you usually will get the heavy rainfall, it's changing slightly. But even that, it is not a continuous change that has come to stay. You still have the possibility of going back to the normal ones that we are used to. And so we are very particular about rainfall. We don't want to go out and say that there's climate change with respect to rainfall. Temperature is quite clear. We are seeing increasing figures. But same has not been seen for rainfall. And so we are seeing variation. So that's what we call climate variability rather than change. So we are saying that there's climate variability in terms of rainfall, but climate change for rainfall is not yet the case.
And what regions would you say are most affected by the heavy rains and flooding? And what regions, by extension, then should keep an eye out in the next sort of few weeks and months ahead?
Well, so during the season, the areas where rains are more frequent are actually the eastern, western, Ashanti, part of the Volta, western north region, and then part of the Ahafo areas. Basically, the forest zone. Rainfall is quite frequent in these areas. But ironically, for us in coastal Ghana, that's the eastern coast of Ghana, that is the area where we receive less rainfall across Ghana. Rainfall in the eastern coast of Ghana is lower than everywhere else. But the few times that we get rainfall, they tend to be quite heavy. And so the heaviest amount, as in daily amount of rainfall, tends to happen within the eastern coast of Ghana. Even though that is where we get the least rainfall annually or seasonally. But the single day rainfall tends to be quite heavy for us in the eastern coast. And that's why we get lots of flooding issues in Accra, coupled with the fact that Accra is quite a low-lying area. And
that's right.
Other factors have not really been fully implemented to stop these flood events. And so with that heavy rainfall contributing, we get series of flood events happening here. But for frequent rainfall, it's usually within the forest zone. So the Ashanti, Eastern, Western North, Volta, and part of the transition areas, that's around the Ahafo North area. That's where rains are more frequent across the country.
Joshua, thank you for that. But do hold on for me. Let me also introduce into the conversation Engineer Mahama Abdullah. He's a road and building consultant. Engineer, hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Helen.
Hope you're doing well.
Some small cold. How we do am?
Oh, how we could do at least we're alive. Where there's life, there is hope. I'm sure you've monitored what's happened since yesterday's heavy downpour in the capital. A lot of flooding in different areas, Lakeside, East Legon, you name it. People's belongings, floating in the water, cars submerged. Are you surprised? And I can almost preempt that you say no, given what you know in the space that you are. But for how long are we going to lament about this issue, and what steps really can we take to prevent this as we enter the rainy season? Is it too late?
It's been late. I'll say good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers, and good morning to the other professional person on the other line. I think at a point we may just have to be replaying my audios with the radio stations over the past 10 years. It's getting to a stage where I'll be very, very stressed in trying to talk about something that is not being done. And if it's being done, it's not being done the right way. Let me situate this, and I pray that today 3FM will send their cameras to one location, just a serious request I'm making.
Sure.
When you are coming from the Abokobi enclave. In fact, you see, my colleague just said that Greater Accra receives the less of the precipitation.
That's right.
Ironically, it is here that the flood waters inundate the land beyond measure. One of the reasons is not because of the improper construction, but actually it's the lowest in terms of the sea level. So it's like all the waters really coming from the eastern region and others actually is received in Greater Accra. I don't know whether it was your studio that made mention of the fact that about 40 years ago there was this document done by Professor Amu, and he said that when it rains in Ebri on the east, the boundary of Greater Accra to the eastern region, in that time it takes about 3 days before the water actually is received fully in Accra. But now, when it rains for just about 30 minutes, 1 hour, the flood waters are received in Accra in a flash. Now, when you just get to Abokobi police station, because this is coming from my driver who virtually was crying on the phone when he called me about 3 weeks ago. I constructed the Abokobi football complex for Accra Lions in 2019 to 2021. During the construction, I drive through the Abokobi police station towards the biggest stream or river that goes around about a kilometer from the Abokobi police station. Just last month or 2 months ago, when I saw the pictures, the river had been filled about 60%. And buildings are sitting on the river course. When you do that, as we've seen across the country or the capital, you have now reduced the area. The bigger the area, the less the floodwaters flashing on the surface of the earth. But the smaller the area, the higher the extent of velocity, extent of the devastation. Now, this particular stream I'm talking about from Abokobi, just around the Abokobi assembly, some few meters away from the assembly itself. It goes through Abokobi, it comes to Ashoman, and that same stream or the river that connects to Agbo Bahato, Top Heba area, there's a very big stream there.
That's
and
right.
It connects towards the Atomic Commission. And that this stream leads to Domitila 2 area and then Christian Village area that connects to the new plan, Abofu, then to San Aveno. And those waters are the ones we are receiving in Accra. Now, if you have gone to fill that particular stream, about 60%, and the assembly is there, then there are 2 questions. I have to make the student's allegation. It's either the person who is filling the river course, which is unacceptable by law, has a big political hand, or his financial influence has override the assembly's judgment. And this is one of the things that I would want 3FM to pick it as an assignment today up to like Wednesday. I'm sure if you pick this data, you would understand and appreciate that if we have 5 of the tributaries which is bringing the water to Accra, and we've decided to fill the river by the construction ongoing on the Abukobi Strait, then I shouldn't be surprised again. And this is the passion I speak with. Because there has been a new law, the National Building Regulation 2022 LI 2465. In fact, it's the current law that gives, if you go to 56, that's the site requirement. It's that on a site, a developer shall not erect a building on a site unless the building is in conformity with the approved land use zoning for the area. Are you telling me that 56+1, that building that are springing on the water course along the whole river stream from the Abukobi uphill, which is part of the Eastern Region boundary, and feeding Accra, are you saying that this law is being adhered to by the assembly or the developer? So somebody is putting up a structure upstream, disregarding all the nature and disregarding all the build regulations, LI 2465, and people downstream, what do you call it, East Legon area, Hato area, Domi area, are receiving the brand of some people who are disregarding the laws with impunity. And these are huge warehouses and factories I've seen there. And Helen, you and I, with our small cash that we receive annually or monthly, we cannot even go there, buy the boulders, the rocks, to fill rivers, let alone do the construction. You should understand my passion this morning, why we are doing this to ourselves. So this is an ongoing construction as I speak. It's one of them. It's a major contributor to the flood in Accra. So why would I be surprised, Helen, that we have stayed, like my other colleague was saying, there's variation in the weather pattern, and we are receiving the highest of rainfall in this current years. But what do you call it? China, 2022, received the highest of flooding. That has not happened for the past 140 years. The highest flood that they witnessed, it was the one that they witnessed in 2022, was the highest in 140 years. But they even handled it in a way with all the damages. If we get 1/10 of that flood waters in Ghana, it will swallow the Greater Accra region. So this law I'm just talking about, in fact, when you continue with the law, there's one of the, I think, 56+1 C. It says that in the area where the place is liable to flooding, the developer must provide adequate flood control measures. If it becomes very necessary that the building or the structure ought to be constructed in that area because of maybe some factors, not on the stream anyway, but around that area, then it behoves on the developer and the assembly has to ensure that the person does it to provide adequate flood control measures by providing or constructing culverts and other storm drains so that his structure would not cause devastation to other people downstream. We are not doing this. The laws are so beautiful. This is a new law that made the former law redundant. This is a current law in 2022 that has been passed. And this is supposed to be the Bible of the assembly, the Bible of every developer, or the Quran of every developer. If we respect the Bible and the Quran of this book, this environment that I'm just holding now, the National Building Regulation 2022 LI 2465 will minimize our flood waters in Accra. Otherwise, Helen, we are not making any headway, and it's so shameful. It's so sad that the capital is receiving huge edifices, new buildings springing up like mushrooms, very beautiful ones, and a lot of them are not going by the regulations that have been laid down for us to just follow.
Engineer, very worrying indeed, these developments that you are educating us on. Hold the line for me. Let me go back to Joshua, and then we'll continue our conversation. Joshua, thank you for your patience. Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here, Helen.
Yes. Now, I wanted to ask, what precautions would you advise that residents in flood-prone areas take during heavy rains?
Okay, so from a meteorological point of view, we always advise that people take the weather warnings quite seriously. So before you step out every day, you need to know what the weather looks like for that day, so you know how you will plan your activities for the day. That's one. We have also introduced what we call the common alerting protocol. So it's just a way of communicating any weather event that we are anticipating, the time it will happen, the instructions for people who will be affected, how they should go about things within the period when we expect that event to occur. And so for people who can read and write, they can easily go to our website, which is meteo.gov.gh. You'll get all the alerts there. Anytime there's an alert, you see a pop-up on their website. You click on it and you get the details. You see all the areas that will be affected. If there's a possibility of flooding, that will also show there. And so you know the kind of actions you are supposed to take if you let the areas. Yesterday, the event was nicely captured from the morning till the evening. And when the events were occurring, we were updating it to cater for all the changes that we are seeing. So if you follow the alerts on the website, you'll be able to navigate your way through the day and know the particular actions that you are supposed to take in any event. Because every weather event will come with its own dynamics, and so the actions may not be the same. So if you follow and you see what exactly we are anticipating, then you take the necessary precautions to avert the danger that comes with it. One thing that people would also have to look out for is that when there's a warning, sometimes the lights and then the thunder flashes will give away the time or how close the storm is. So this is just a way for people to also observe the weather. If you see lights and flashes and it takes a while before you hear the sound of the thunder, that means that the storm is not too close to you. Okay. So you can have some time to take shelter. But the event where you see lights and flashes and then very short after the flash, you see or hear the sound of the thunder, that means that the storm is very close to you. And so in that instance, you don't have time at all. You need to take very action then so that you get a shelter in a very steady place. Sometimes you're seeking shelter and you're looking out for the tallest building or under trees and stuff like that. That's also not safe because lightning and thunder tend to attract these tall objects, and so you may be putting yourself in harm's way if you find yourself in these places. So we should just be so more interested in weather forecast so that it will help us plan our day.
Absolutely. And I've been following quite keenly on your X page where you give us some frequent updates on the weather forecast. Ayiko, for all of Ghana Met's hard work, and you follow it up with a graph of the entire country. So we will be following quite keenly as well.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. I'm sure it's a busy one for you. That was Joshua Asamoah. He's a meteorologist with the Ghana Met. But I still have Engineer Abdullahi on the lines. He's a road and building consultant, also very passionate about what's going on in the capital and beyond as far as the flooding is concerned. Engineer, what about the issue of siltation, waste management, and drainage maintenance across the capital, and how much is that contributing to some of the devastation we're seeing? We've got videos upon videos of waste just floating across the water. Talk to us about that particular theme.
Yes, I think from 2017, 18, 19, I've made some points like even in as much as I don't subscribe to or I don't support anybody emptying his bins into the rains when the rains are in. They go in and actually block a lot of the channels, and then it brings about what we call localized flooding. The localized flooding is that maybe you see flooding in certain locations, whereas in fact if the drains were all functioning without this human interference, there wouldn't be any flood in that area. I went ahead to say that if you look at the Odo, I just want this word to be very strategic. I don't want people to just pick the word and make it a different, agenda.
All right.
When you see the surface of the Odona, the percentage of silt, the floating object, is not up to 5% or even like 3%. The Odo is silted with gravel or material, granular material. Okay, then just like how I just took you through Abokobi, through Abofu, when you get to Brekusu area, and these are the high areas that feed the Odo, the silt. If we do not extend our concrete lining, which is we don't extend our storm drains from gravel or earth drains to gravel to concrete drains. It means that whenever it rains and with the silt Accra, with the silt Odo proper, it will just take about one season's rain, and then we'll still see the same level of silt. That means that hitherto where water should have actually occupied is now being occupied by silt. So it means the drains, the storm drains, the function of the storm drain is to collect water, but it's not collecting silt. So just go towards the Achimota New Station. And you see, when I'm using the Odo, it's because it's the major designed final receptor of all of Pillar 2, just closer to the Kwabena roundabout. We have not lined the drains yet. And so when it rains, with the velocity of the water, because the water is coming with that speed, it carries everything along its path. When the water starts to slow down around the ABC, the Abofu, the Alajo, and then finally the Odo area, then you have what we call high deposition of silt. And this silt is not supposed to be part of the drain. Rather, that has gone to occupy about 60 to 70% of the space. It means that the water that is supposed to be received by the drain is no more being received. That's why you have the flow of water on the surface. Right. Because if it is functioning properly, it will take it. And this mantra, I've heard this over and over again. Oh, the drains are small in size. The drains have not been done well. See, I beg to differ because I have seen proper construction of roads and drains where there's an hydro engineer who doesn't just come and say, oh, just put 600 mm drain here, just put 900 mm drain here, or 1,200 drain. They look at the catchment area, what we call the terrain. They look at the level of water that comes within the area. They go to the metro department and hydro department and pick the data of the previous year's runoff, the runoff, and then use their calculation, which is actually standardized across the world, and then determine the kind of drain sizes to construct on some of our area roads. I'm not saying that 100% of the drains are okay, but about 95% of the drains I've seen being constructed by engineers with the calculation, they are okay. But can you imagine that just around 3 FM, you get to Kanda, or let's say you've gotten to just about 37 traffic light, and somebody has just come to watch the effort of the drain that has been done from 3 FM to that side. They mean that because something has blocked the logical flow of the water, you start to have what we call the retention. That's right. And when the water is being retained, then the area flood. Same applies to when you actually empty the refuse into the drains. They get to a small place where what we call the cat pit. The cat pit is like a box that is supposed to reduce the speed of the water, like bubbling. Then, because you are going to empty your refuse into the drain, it gets to that place, it chokes the cat pit. Then we have the localized flood. About 3-4 years, remember the motorway started flooding. That's right. That's why I call it the intermittent localized flood, because motorway was not supposed to flood.
I think now, some 2-3 years ago, we were seeing that. Or maybe that's some right. 2 years ago, that's right.
As I'm talking to you right now, I am actually in Sawam, enjoying a very good cool breeze. Why? Because I've not just left there to Accra. Why would the areas which are rather feeding the capital with the water is not having those kind of challenges? Because along the path of it, some recalcitrant developers have impeded the flow of the water reasonably into the ocean. And unfortunately for us, like I said on your studio, the ocean is rising 2 millimeters every year because of the global warming. The ice is melting in the sea, increasing the level of the sea. And so the only thing we can do is to retain our water bodies to slowly get into the sea. Otherwise, with the speed that is coming, the sea will reject the water. And then the last thing, we had in the previous administration, there was supposed to be 18 buffer areas. I mean, what do you call it? Buffer zones were supposed to be constructed in Accra to be the receptor of the waters. The Auditor General report in 2022 was that none of them had been started. None. And these are the identified areas by the Hydro Department or Hydrological Service Authority, which is that if these buffers are constructed, they will now be receiving all the flood waters to minimize the extent of the devastation. So let's come again and ask the Hydro Department, have they started? What is the state at which we are? Because in 2021, there was not an authority called Hydro Authority. And it was championed that we need to have an authority. And so that when the authority start to work from Hydrological Service Department to an authority so that they can bite. I had my own banter with them on TV. I want to see when they are going to start the biting because we need them to work. We need them to give us projections. We need them to act and take people swiftly to court. And so we can have a lot of our areas inundated with the flood to minimize.
So, Engineer, it sounds like ours is a case of a lack of regulatory compliance. That's really at the heart of this matter.
Apart from the fact that some areas in Accra, no matter what happens, they will receive the waters because of the low-lying nature of the topography. Let me use the word, the term topography of Accra. Ukwase, McCarthy Hills, Weja, Ebri, Ayimensa, Abukubi, and then Brekusu are the areas that are surrounding the Accra from the northern and then the western and then the eastern boundaries. And they are very high. And so they are feeding Accra. So some of the areas in Accra, the lowest areas will receive the water. But the only thing you can do in those areas is to properly demarcate those areas and then create the buffer dams or the buffer areas so that the water will be received. We call them the receptors. When those receptors receive the water, it means that if we're supposed to have flash waters on the surface of Accra, let's say in terms of let me use the normal layman's term, let it 2 feet.
Right.
The height of your 2 feet put together. But because of the receptors, maybe receiving a quarter of your feet. That means that the water would have been manageable. So we should go back to the Hydro Department, Hydro Authority, and find out from them that the 18 that was stated in the Auditor General's report, how far have we gone? And let's know that, okay, if we've done about 60%, then we expect that the water should have been minimized by this time of the year. We have just started the rains. The rains have just started. And
that's right.
It's not going to be easy for us.
That means you're forecasting a lot of destruction still to come as the weeks and the months progress. We've only just started the rainy season. But Engineer, one might ask then, how do you balance infrastructure development whilst preserving natural drainage systems?
Like I said, you see, if you call on the specialists who are trained in all these areas at the assembly or at their private offices, when they are to ensure that they become consultants, they become contractors of individual or corporate development, and they adhere strictly to the Bible and the Quran I told you earlier. And that adherence means that you are respecting nature. The only time that you will have some of these floods, which will be like 1 in 50-year design, 1 in 25-year design, 1 in 100-year design, is the force majeure. That's the act of God. There are some years that you cannot certainly, with certainty, predict the runoff that will be received on the surface of the planet. But it's because you have actually made some forecast properly. Like I said, the 1 in 25-year design, the 1 in 50-year design, 1 in 100-year design. It means that in 100 years, within 100 years, there will be a certain rainfall that will surpass all other rainfall. That informs the engineers when they are doing their design for their storm drains. But I said, building regulation 2022 LI 2465. My dear Helen, just write it down and have that book and read. It has been explained in in normal terms for anybody to understand the plain English. When we follow these books and the assemblies make sure that people are adhering to the regulations, like you said, the compliance. I mean, they are compliant to all the regulations. Honestly, about 80% of the regulations. I'm so sure that in about 5 years' time, when you are talking to any other engineer, you hear that Accra has actually had a lot of control. France, Germany, Italy, last 2 years had some flood waters like that. But how long did this stay? Because they know that they are receiving an abnormal rainfall at that time. But because of the design of the communities, it didn't last for long. The waters actually moved and subsided in the channels, their reservoirs, and other things. And they came back to normal to operate. But anytime it rains in millimeters in Accra, we're in serious trouble.
Engineer, thank you so much for your time this morning and for so eloquently putting these issues to the fore. The passion with which you speak lets us know that you're very committed to the work that you do. You've given us some homework this morning. I've noted that down, and I'm sure we can get some updates as the days and weeks progress. It's quite troubling, the scenes that we're seeing as far as the flooding yesterday is concerned. We spoke with Ghana Mets. You were on the line with Joshua, and there's more rain we're told to come. So again, thank you, and let's talk again soon.
Welcome, Helen.
Have a wonderful Monday. Again, that was Engineer Mahama Abdullahi. He's a road and building consultant, always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these issues, and he's been weighing in on the flood situation that has been plaguing all of us over the years. And yesterday we saw that again come to life with many of you sharing videos. You see some of that on the socials. We'll pause now for a very quick break. When we come back, there's a lot more right here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
3FM 92.7.